What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to Gator Games Fan TV. How are we all getting on? How is the form? So we're going to be discussing the 4 championship games that took place in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship in this video. We're going to be in-depthly really looking at Armagh versus Derry and Meath versus Cork. I did do reviews kind of already, like post-match reaction to Donegal versus Tyrone and after the Louth versus Monaghan game. We will still discuss those games in this video. Let's discuss the weekend's game, and let's start off with Armagh versus Derry. It was Armagh 221, Derry 217. Firstly, once again, like I know it's a repeated topic, and it's something we always seem to discuss, and I'm almost bored of talking about it now, but again, just another massive own goal by the GA here to not have this game live somewhere. I get to a certain extent that there's only so much games you can show, right? And GA Plus had 2 football games this weekend, 50% of the 4 games that were there. They obviously showed 2 last week as well. So look, that's fair enough, but I don't understand why we just can't have all the games that are there. You know, the League of Ireland do it, as we very well know. You can watch any game at any time when they're on. Because they are being recorded. There are commentary teams in place at these matches, or even the likes of TG Caher or RTE. Could they get more rights for more of these games? Because there is a demand there, and people absolutely would have tuned in to Armagh versus Derry too. Maybe it's not the biggest rivalry between the two in terms of Ulster. Obviously Armagh would probably have a bit more of a hatred for other counties. Derry may be the same as well, but just very disappointing not to have this game. There is an argument that this maybe should have been shown over Louth versus Monaghan. Whether there is something where they have to have the provincial champions shown or something like that, because all the provincial champions have been on TV. So whether that's the reason why GA Plus, maybe contractually have to go with Louth versus Monaghan, I don't really know. And I don't want to take anything away from GA Plus. They do bring a good service, to be fair. The coverage is very, very good and everything else. But yeah, I would love to see them bring in more of like a League of Ireland format, because this sounded like an absolutely cracking game, to be fair. And the fact we didn't get to see it live, and look, shout out to Armagh GA TV. I think they did like an audio stream or something of that nature. So fair play to them for thinking a little bit outside the box there and everything else. But yeah, first of all, that was just quite disappointing. Enough moaning and complaining, though. Let's talk about the game. And look, fair play to Armagh. They bounced back. They had to win this game, in my opinion, especially with this group. Having Dublin to come next in Croke Park and then Galway in a neutral venue as well. Had Armagh not have won this game, there would have been some concerns maybe that Armagh mightn't actually get out of this group, potentially because, how strong the group is. But they got over the line. And look, to be fair, they were brilliant as well. It was very, very comfortable. Derry got a couple of goals towards the end to make it a little bit comfortable. But generally speaking, it was a brilliant, brilliant performance from an Armagh perspective. Once again, we're seeing the best of Oisin Connaughton, who's been a real, a real standout player since coming into this team. Still a young player, and he doesn't look out of place at all. Like 4 points from him, he was outstanding. Great to see Rian O'Neill back as well. I kind of said it throughout the year that I always felt like he would come back. It was never an injury or anything like that. As far as I know, it was more kind of personal reasons as to why he wasn't involved with Armagh. But he is back. And look, he was playing at centre-back, I think, as well. Now, obviously, we didn't get to see the game live. I didn't listen to the audio stream. I only seen the highlights. So people can correct me and let me know if he actually was playing at centre-back. Now, we have seen him play more so in midfield over the last couple of years, and maybe with the new rules and 2-pointers, he's the perfect player to have in that position. He did kick a point, but great to obviously see him back. And look, he'll be massive for Armagh, no doubt about it. Like, if you can get him at his absolute best come, even next week in Croke Park, which is where we tend to see the best performances from Rian O'Neill, he will make a difference for this Armagh side. Like, he's the difference between winning a game a point and maybe even losing it if he's not playing. Do you know what I mean? He's one of the best footballers in the country, in my opinion, and especially with these new rules, he's absolutely a player we know that can step up in the big occasion when his county needs him the most. And it might just be the difference between retaining the All-Ireland and maybe even losing a close game. So having him back was absolutely crucial from an Armagh perspective. To shout out Andrew Murnan as well, 3 points, and Rory Grugan as well. Rory Grugan, I feel like he's the unsung hero of this Armagh side. I think, look, Rian O'Neill gets a lot of plaudits, Conor Turbitt gets a lot of plaudits, Stephen Campbell gets a lot of plaudits, and many other players do as well. Rory Grugan's he definitely doesn't seem to be put in the same bracket, maybe because there's so many brilliant Armagh forwards, in fairness, but like, what a servant he's been to this Armagh side, and 3 points again, another top class performance from him. Barry McCambridge getting the goal. Brilliant pick out by Andrew Murnan. And we saw a lot of them goals over the weekend where the ball's kind of put on top of the opposition goalkeeper. And to be fair to Barry McCambridge, scoops the ball in the back of net. And yeah, like I've seen someone even tweeting out as well, like, whoever wins the All-Ireland this year is going to be the one that just floats the balls on top of the goalkeeper. And in fairness as well, like I think it was planned as well. It didn't look like a miss hit or anything like that. It did look like Andrew Murnan did actually intentionally put the ball there. So fair play. And obviously a massive goal as well for Conor Turbo coming off the bench quite early on, I think, for an injury, scoring 1-2. Very, very good performance from him as well. Look, for Derry, it's more of the same old thing for Derry. Like, I think the way they ended the game will give their fans a bit of confidence, but we just have seen this throughout the year with Derry, and it's kind of hard to know. Like, they are playing very good teams. Like, it must be stressed, like, to play Donegal in the opening game in Ulster, to play Armagh, to be in a group with Galway and Dublin as well. And obviously the standard in Division 1 has been very, very high as well. So it's kind of like, don't get me wrong, Derry have definitely not been at the levels that we know that they can get to. But at the same time, they are playing like very, very good quality opposition, and that does have to be factored into as well. Conor Glass played very well, and that was like more back to one of his better performances, like 1-3. And like Shane McGuigan scored 5 points. Paul Cassidy was at it as well. Like he scored 5 points as well. And I think for Derry, like, is it just a confidence thing maybe? Like, there were 13 points behind at one stage in this game. When they actually put their foot on the gas and went for it, they got 2 goals, like one after another, one from Conor Glass, obviously the other one from Dan Higgins coming off the bench as well. And they nearly got a few more. Like Ethan Rafferty pulled out some big, big saves to actually keep, to keep Armagh with a healthy sort of lead going into the final couple of minutes. Maybe some cause for concern for Armagh there defensively. You don't often see them ship goals like that. And like the way Derry cut through them was a little bit worrying, especially when you have Dublin and Galway to come. But at the same time, apparently does feel like Armagh just took their foot off the gas. They thought this game was done and dusted, which they probably shouldn't do. But I can understand that given how far ahead that they were. And for Derry, it's like it's 10 games now that they've played, 10 games in a row, dating back to that Kerry defeat in the All-Ireland quarter-final last year, where they haven't won. And look, they've played some very good teams in that time. There's no doubt about that. And you can't take that away. And they've been maybe a little bit unlucky once or twice throughout the league not to have ended with more points. I've certainly seen more worse teams down the years relegated than this Derry side. But it's just hard to know. And I'd wonder for any kind of Derry fans even watching, where is it going wrong? Is it Paddy Tally? Is it the players? Did Derry just overachieve a little bit when they had Rory Gallagher as manager, and maybe they punched above their weight ever so slightly, and now they're kind of regressing back to the standard they're actually at? I don't personally think that, but I'm just curious to know what people think. Is it just the level of opposition that they've played as well? And look, I think that is a fair point, to be in a group where, the All-Ireland champions, the All-Ireland runners-up in Dublin, and then, they had Donegal, of course, in the opening weekend in Ulster as well. So it hasn't been easy for them, to be fair, and I don't think they're they were beaten. There were 13 points down at one stage. And when you were looking at the score on Scorpio, because obviously this game wasn't live anywhere, you were kind of thinking, this looks a bit bleak for Derry. But then when you see them actually putting in a huge amount of effort towards the end, you think there is something there to give their fans a little bit of confidence going into the game next week versus Galway. And that's an absolutely huge game for Derry, because Galway did look a little bit vulnerable versus Dublin. They do have a couple of injuries themselves as well. Derry will be playing that game at home, and they need to win that game to give themselves a chance of getting out of this group. And it's a massive game because, look, they play Dublin in a neutral venue, and who knows what will happen there. But I do think, for Derry, there's some positive signs towards the end of the game, but it is more or less the kind of the same kind of thing we've saw with Derry throughout the year. And when you do think back as well, their last win was against Mayo last year in a preliminary qualifier. They haven't won a game in normal time since Westmeath. They've actually won 2, I think, of their last 15 games in all competitions since they won the league last year. So it has been an astronomical drop off, and I would be curious to know for any other Derry fans what is going on there. Even as well, Kieran McFall, not getting nothing from him maybe is a little bit disappointing. Owen McAvoy, who I remember was phenomenal against Dublin last year in the league final, and he just Yeah, there just does seem to be something missing. And again, I'm going to leave it open to any Derry fans who are watching. Do let us know, where is it going wrong for Derry this year. Moving on from that, Tyrone got a massive win, 217 to 20 points versus Donegal. I did drop a match reaction after the game, and cheers for anyone who tuned in and left some nice comments and everything else. Look, I'll reiterate my point a little bit in that in that video. I think Tyrone are serious All-Ireland contenders. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I think they were always in the conversation, but maybe the noise wasn't there because of the fact that they got relegated, and they've obviously had a couple of inconsistent years the last couple of seasons, and they were beaten by Armagh in the Ulster semi-final. But no doubt these players, there's some quality footballers within this Tyrone side, from Darren McCurry, from Con Kilpatrick, Peter Hart coming off the bench. You've got Owen McElhone, who will obviously be playing in an under-20 All-Ireland final this week as well. So, there's a lot of very good moving parts there with Tyrone, and a massive win for Malachy O'Rourke as well. And as people said in the reaction to that video, like this, hopefully now we'll get a bit more of a buy-in from the Tyrone supporters, because I have been hearing that not a lot of Tyrone fans have been buying into the project so far. So hopefully now that will kind of make Tyrone fans go, right, we have a chance here now. And I think the positives is like Kieran McGeary looking back to his best, to be fair. Like a phenomenal performance from him, finishing with 1 point. Shawnee O'Donnell getting 2 goals as well, in the right place at the right time for both of those goals. And it was just a vintage Tyrone performance. And look, lads, I mean, when you look through the history of Tyrone, bizarrely enough, the last 2 managers that they've had have both won All-Irelands in their opening seasons. Obviously, one of them was a joint managerial pairing of Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher. Mickey Hart, obviously, the time previous as well. And of course, let's not forget, Mickey Hart's first All-Ireland was the year after Armagh won their first All-Ireland. So who's to say the Tyrone's, what will be their 5th All-Ireland, will come after Armagh just won their second. So maybe there's a couple of omens pointing in the right direction for Tyrone. I'm not entirely sure. I think the big thing for Tyrone, though, is consistency. It is consistency because, look, we saw Tyrone get big results in the past. They've pulled out some of these results down the years. But since that All-Ireland win in 2021, they've struggled for consistency. But if they can find and if they can go on a run, they're a serious threat. And they're definitely in the top 4 teams in the country, in my opinion. Donegal and Jim McGuinness, it is a setback. Interesting enough, Jim McGuinness's first championship defeat to Tyrone, which is quite the statistic there. Maybe just a sign that Donegal are beatable. You can get at this Donegal side. Percentage-wise and in terms of intensity and everything else, there did seem to be a bit of a drop from Donegal. Whether that was because they were playing in an Ulster final 2 weeks ago, I'm not entirely sure. But there definitely did seem to be somewhat of a drop from this Donegal side. In saying that, though, take nothing away from Tyrone. They were phenomenal. But, just a little bit disappointing there from a Donegal perspective. Moving on from that, then, we had Meath 113, Cork 12 points. Massive win in the end for Meath football after the devastation of losing to Louth and everything else in the Leinster final and the cobwebs and everything. They brushed them off. And this was a huge win for Meath. At home to Cork. 2 teams that are at a very similar level, you would say. Really not much between them. And you could see that in the game or from looking at the highlights, because, again, this was another game that wasn't shown live. But yeah, like you could see that, in the opening kind of couple of minutes, it was very, very even. That Jordan Morris goal, absolutely huge for Morris as well, coming back from an injury. So to get that goal, starting the game as well, absolutely massive there from a Meath perspective. And look, the conditions were absolutely terrible, to be fair, as it was like across the majority of the country. Very bipolar conditions, it must be said. And playing in Navan as well, a tight pitch. I did see a few people kind of saying, only 5,000 at this game as well. So not a huge kind of sellout, to be fair, with the weather being the way it was, with it being kind of an early Saturday throw-in as well, 3 p.m. Maybe that was a reason for fans not wanted to turn up. Obviously, it is quite a trek for Cork fans, it must be said as well, to be fair. So, and there is obviously a lot of games, you know what I mean? There's a lot to pay for now, a lot of matches, and, maybe for Cork and Meath fans, they're saving money for further down the line, and who can actually blame them in regards to that? But yeah, massive response for Meath. Owen Frayne with 3 points. Matthew Costello, again, big performance from him, 5 points. Absolutely outstanding. And as I've said, like, he's probably in the conversation for an all-star right now. For Cork, look, going away to Meath, it was always going to be difficult, to be fair. And I'm actually not too sure who they play next. It actually might be Kerry that they play next. I think at home. So that might be that'd be a huge game if they can get anything from there. But I think the thing with Cork, like the thing I've noticed about Cork is that they do, like, Mark Cronin with 4 points, Chris Oak-Jones with 4. They obviously didn't have Brian Hurley in this game, and obviously he was a massive miss in fairness. Couldn't really get Brian O'Driscoll into the game. He made a massive, he kicked some brilliant 2-pointers at different times in the match versus Kerry. And look, it's one of them for Cork. Unfortunately for Cork, they do, like, it's been so kind of prevalent with Cork, under this management and over the last couple of years, when they're playing a Kerry, when they're playing a bigger team, they'll really, really raise their game, and they might nearly pull off the upset. They might nearly pull off the shock. But when they're playing teams kind of similar to their level, they struggle. They absolutely struggle, and we saw versus Louth last year in the championship. And it's hard to know with Cork football. It doesn't feel like they're progressing, but I don't know if they're regressing either. And maybe some would say if you're not progressing, then you're going backwards. Do you know what I mean? But look, it's all's not lost for Cork. I think the most important thing for them now is, even if they do lose to Kerry, give it a good game again. Push Kerry. Give yourself a bit of confidence. Keep the score difference down, because for me, it will go down to that game versus Roscommon. And look, it's hard to know. I think Roscommon are a better team than Cork, but I could see Cork winning that game. They've obviously done it in the past before as well. So it will be interesting to see. But look, massive win in the end for Meath. And the last game was Louth 4-8, Monaghan 1-23. It was another provincial winner who tasted defeat in the opening weekend of the group stages, or the opening game of the group stages. Big win for Monaghan on paper. Probably their toughest game, it must be said. Going away to Louth, obviously not kind of away, more so in a neutral venue in Newbridge. And to be fair with Louth, obviously not being able to play their home games in their county, because they don't have the big enough ground at the moment. So yeah, look, I mean, fair play to Monaghan. Stephen O'Hanlon, outstanding again. 1-3 from him. Micheál Bannigan, the captain, with 6 points. Really, really top-class performance. And Monaghan, there was moments in the game where it felt like Louth were going to come back into it. Again, much like the Leinster final. Some big goals, obviously, in the first half, very much keeping them in it. Samuel Roy, obviously, getting 2 goals, one of them a penalty, another one, again, another kind of ball kind of lobbed into the square. And yeah, in fairness to Louth, they kept themselves in it. They kept fighting. It felt like there was moments in the second half where they could have gone and potentially won this game. And look, there was bound to be a bit of a hangover from the Leinster final and everything else, and what they achieved and what they done there. So I don't think anyone can begrudge Louth or take anything away from them. And they're, without question, in my opinion, going to get out of this group. It's just, where will they finish? Will they get second? Will they get third? I think it will go down to that match versus Down. But Monaghan are motoring along very, very nicely, and massive chance for them to win this group now, you would imagine. Go into a quarterfinals, be seeded in those quarterfinals as well. So probably going to avoid the likes of Kerry and some of the other group winners. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I suppose the thing with Monaghan, like we're talking about the kind of contenders, and Armagh, Galway, Kerry, Tyrone, all Donegal, all being in the conversation. It's interesting to know, like, where the Monaghan rank within that. It's kind of an interesting one with Monaghan, because we've only really seen them play one kind of really high-level opposition all year, and that was Donegal. And Donegal did beat them quite comfortably, it must be said, in that Ulster quarter-final. So it's kind of hard to know where they're at, to be fair, because I think we'd all agree that Louth are not all-Ireland contenders. Down aren't, Clare aren't, and the majority of teams that Monaghan played in Division 2 this year are not All-Ireland contenders. But look, the All-Ireland winners have come from Division 2 in the last couple of years. Is that a good sign for Monaghan? I don't really know. I would certainly be surprised if they did win the All-Ireland, to be honest with you, but they are a dark horse. They are going under the radar. And with these new rules as well, with a player like Rory Beggan, who is outstanding from kickouts and also can kick some phenomenal 2-pointers, I do think they have a chance, maybe getting to a semi-final, or maybe even more. I think whoever beats Monaghan might be, maybe goes on to an All-Ireland final or something like that. So, and even for any Monaghan fans who are watching, I know there are plenty out there, so do let me know as well what you think in terms of like your All-Ireland chances. But yeah, like I think it's hard to know if they're in the mix, because we haven't seen them enough against the top teams. But look, when it gets to the quarter-final stage in Croke Park, that's obviously when we're going to know what they're really made of. But anyway, lads, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up here. Do check out the Hurling Show, which was actually out yesterday now. We will be back later in the week for a preview. Some big games happening this weekend in football. Some massive games. Armagh, Dublin, Croke Park. Absolutely looking forward to it. And some other big games as well. So, yeah, tune in for a preview show later in the week. Whenever that is, I don't know. But do tune in for it. You'll know about it. Be there or don't be there. It's up to you. But anyway, hit the like button, subscribe. Speak to y'all later.